I'm John Van Eden, Vice President of Human Resources for Marmon Crane Services. And today, for those of you who haven't met him, I'm joined by Tim Benjamin, our new president. Tim comes to us from Rail Services, which is another business within the Marmon Group, where he led Rail Serve for 20 years. Prior to that, or after that, sorry, he moved to Rail Products and Equipment Services for 3 months before joining us in Crane Services. Tim, welcome to Crane Services.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here.
So I'd like to ask you a few questions just about your background and your life before Crane Services. And you've been with us for a few months and the time that you've had so far with us. But before we get started with that, tell us a little bit about your prior experience with Marmon and how you made the career choices that brought you to Crane Services.
Yeah, it's been a great ride being part of Marmon. I joined Rail Serve in early 2001, so it's been not quite 20 years. And it was a real small company at the time. I think revenue was maybe 21, 22 million. So it was a relatively new company in the industry because the rail sector had not been deregulated for very long at that point. And it was just a fun ride. So most of those career decisions were really values decisions. Mm-hmm. So we were very intentional on safety. There is nothing more important, just like the crane industry, nothing more important in the rail industry than safety. Values were key. We actually would fire customers if they weren't safe enough for us. Usually you never say no to a customer. We had no problem with that. So building the team was a lot of fun, because when you've got just a few hundred people, it's one thing. By the time we got to 1,500 people, it was a whole different thing, and it required a whole different set of dynamics and complexities. So it was really fun building that team. If you think about it, you spend more time with your work teammates than you do at home. So our rule when we hired somebody is to make absolutely sure they were going to fit in, because you didn't want to let somebody in and create just a negative, toxic environment. It just made it miserable for everybody. So those people have become great friends as well as great parts of the team.
Great. So speaking of your home family, tell us a bit about your family and about places you've lived in the past.
Sure. I have a 29-year-old son, a 26-year-old daughter, and a 2-year-old grandson. Guess which one I like best? So, I've been married for 34 years. I grew up in upstate New York. Now, for people not from the East Coast, when you hear the word New York, you think of the city. Mm-hmm. No, think cows, not people. As a matter of fact, there were 3 times as many cows in the town that I grew up in as people. 4 stop signs, no stop lights. The school district was like 300 square miles and graduating class of 106. It was very, very rural. My mom's family has had a family farm in northern Pennsylvania for seriously 300 years. So it's, Don't think of the city when you think of New York. I spent my first year at a little college called Adrian. I picked it for all the wrong reasons and went there for sports and realized, nope, that's not the reason you pick a college. So I transferred to the University of Buffalo, where I met the woman that became my wife. We got married in 1986 and lived in New England for 7 years, Indiana for 4 years, and Georgia now for 22 years.
Wow, great. Tell us a little bit more about your hobbies or other outside interests.
Yeah, my 2 favorite things to do are teaching Sunday school and going to CrossFit. 2 things don't often go together, but this one actually does.
Excellent. And so I understand that you've maintained some sports fandom. So tell me about your favorite sports teams and possible rivalries.
Yeah, let's start with a rivalry.
Okay,
That'll be
right,
fun.
Fair enough.
All right, Winnipeg. I want to congratulate you guys in advance for never getting anything approved ever again the rest of your lives. I take that back. The minute I get my hockey team back, then you can get things approved. So yeah, I was a passionate Atlanta Thrashers fan until the city of Winnipeg violated the entire NHL Board of Governance and took our team. So I remain a loyal Atlanta Thrashers fan. So technically my favorite hockey team now is whoever's playing the Winnipeg Jets. Okay, so fair warning, Winnipeg. Can't wait to meet you. For baseball and football, I'm a loyal Pittsburgh Pirates fan and Buffalo Bills fan. If nothing else, it tells you that I am fiercely loyal.
Excellent. Excellent. So sports rivalries aside, tell us a little bit more about some of the leadership values that you bring to the roles that you've had and anticipate bringing to the Crane Services business.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good values that any good leader has. And you have to pick some that you really want to hang your hat on. Arbitrarily, I've picked 3. Everybody can pick their own number. I've gone with 3. And for me, those 3 are safety, honesty, and fun. So safety, we talked about that already. We talked about how important it was in my upbringing in the rail industry. But it's even more personal than that. Because in the rail industry, when somebody gets hurt, it's not a little boo-boo. It's serious. And we didn't have that many that were incredibly bad injuries, but we did have some. And it was my personal belief that I needed to be in the hospital with the injured employee and the family as soon as I could possibly physically get there. When you see somebody in that situation where they're missing part of an arm perhaps, or they've got something sticking out of them to try and keep things held together, that's a sight and a feeling that you will never, ever, ever shake. And that makes safety real, and it makes it personal. So because of that, I am fiercely committed to making sure everything we do is absolutely safe. There is no such thing as an acceptable risk to make money. Absolutely not. There is no such thing as skirting the system. There's no such thing as shortcuts. Much like the crane industry, the rail industry is a really big metal thing that will win a battle with you every time. So we have to make sure we're doing things the right way. Because of that, there's a technology path that we've gone down because we recognize humans are going to make mistakes. You're going to have bad days. You're going to be hot or cold or tired or angry or had a fight with whoever. And there's going to be a lapse of judgment. So any good system has to have a compensation for that lack of judgment. And really proud of the team at RailServe for what they've done there. And already just in the first few months here, just talking about that a little bit, there's been some really good ideas that people are already working on to do the same thing for Crane. So I'm super looking forward to that. Honesty, that should be foundational, but you know, there's variations to honesty that I've learned over time. You know, when you put your hand in a Bible in a court proceedings, it says the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Those are 3 different things. And that's what I want. I want to hear the bad stuff. I want to hear when things aren't going well. I want to know how I can help you. I'm not going to give you a lecture. You're an adult. You know, you probably know why it went bad to begin with. And we just need to be part of the process. Can we help you and help your colleagues not have that happen again? So if I ask you a question, I just want to know the truth. I just want to know what's going on. And I want to hear it proactively from you. And fun is kind of an interesting thing because you think it's work. It's not, you don't go to fun, you go to work, right? So there's 2 different things. I mentioned earlier that I went to Adrian for sports, and when I realized that was a horrible failure, the thing that kept me from quickly transferring to a different school where I could get a good degree was the fact that, man, I don't want a dreary, dull job. I want something that provides fun every day. So I made a commitment to myself when I was 19, trust me, it's like a billion years ago, that whatever I do is going to be fun. And you really can make work fun. There are some times when it's not fun and there's certain tasks you can't get around. But work can be fun. If you don't like what you're doing, you probably shouldn't do it. So you'll hear me joking with you, you'll hear me quipping. There's a variety of ways to make things fun, but I really want it to be fun for me and fun for you and fun for everybody that I come across.
One other question about your background can you share a particularly formative experience that you had perhaps early in your career, perhaps a little later on, that really helped to form your style as a leader?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I went to the University of Buffalo. It's a very large school in the Northeast, and I got my MBA in 1986. Now, not too long after that, there's a movie that came out that you guys probably have all heard of called Wall Street. And there's a line in there that says, greed is good. It's not just a joke in a movie. That's what we were taught in MBA school. So greed is fine. Greed is what makes American capitalism work. And you just need to run over anybody that gets in your way to make sure that you're generating the profit for the company you work for. So that's the way I was trained. And then I spent about 7 years in New England where, kindness and nicety sometimes takes a back seat. So it was reinforced. But then I moved to Indiana, and I realized really quickly that that style of leadership did not sit well in the American Midwest. At the same time, I was blessed to have two different people influence me. One was kind of a leadership collective, and the other was a gentleman named Tim Morrow, who was the plant manager. And through both of those, I learned that the technical things that I was taught are probably true, but the leadership things I was taught could not be further from the truth. And I learned the concept of servant leadership, is that I am here for you, you're not here for me. And that felt so much more natural. Once I understood how it worked, and once I realized the value in it, work became a lot more fun. Again, one of those things that is important to me. So I'm like, wow, this really works better. So the servant leadership model at that point in my career was vital. Work became more fun, home became more fun, we got more success, and frankly, people wanted to be part of the team. And once we changed that a little bit, and I taught myself how to realign, greed isn't necessarily good. We've got to make sure we're balancing this out. And all of a sudden, things started to click. And at that point, my career really took off because I could build a bigger team and didn't have to worry about keeping my thumb on everything. You just let the people do their job and then facilitate it.
Great. Great. And talking a little bit further about your leadership style, how do you like to connect with teams? You've had large teams in the past and have worked with various different people. How do you prefer to connect with those teams?
I ask a lot of questions, and most of them are just discussion questions. They're questions designed to stimulate thought. And I think I'm a pretty good listener. I try and be a good listener. And as part of that, we'll just keep asking probing questions until we get all of the fact patterns out there and we can start to explore options. It's actually called Socratic questioning. It assumes the teacher doesn't know anything. And trust me, right now for me and Cranes, that's not an act. I don't know anything. So it assumes the student knows everything and the teacher knows nothing. And we just ask questions to explore different options and different perceptions. So once we're able to have a really good, effective conversation, then it becomes collaboration after that. We will look at all the different viewpoints that people have and then start saying, okay, this part of that seems really good and that part of this seems really good. Can we put them together? Can we come to consensus on what is the best? Can we come to consensus on how to weave them together for a better composite solution? If there's anything that's an absolute truth, is that people want to be heard. That came through pretty loud and clear in the survey from you guys, and we'll talk more about that later, but that need to be heard is universal. And in my opinion, a collaborative way of looking at that is necessary. Can we issue some hard directives when necessary? Yes, of course we can. But that's not where we start. So for example, if people are performing inappropriately, if there's problems with the customer, if there's unsafe behavior, then yeah, you got to be held accountable. But beyond that, it's a very collaborative, free-flowing work environment.